And we are here tonight. My name is Vicki Gallen Clark. I am the Executive Director of the Blue Hills Civic Association. And so, true to our mission to ensure that our community is safe and that we have a vibrant community, we are here tonight to talk about a very vital topic that impacts all of us as Blue Hills residents. And we're also here because we are the lead community partner at Weaver High School. And without digressing too much, I'd like to just acknowledge the assistant principal at Weaver High School and our state representative, Mr. Joshua Hall. Thank you so much for being here. I especially like to acknowledge the residents who are here, people who live in this community, who really care about the community. So thank you so much for being here. And then our representatives that you will meet tonight from C&G, from University of Hartford, and other guests that will be actually introduced. Our moderator is Victoria Fennell, who is the Chief Operating Officer at the Blue Hills Civic Association. So she's gonna make sure that we stay on track, that we adhere to time and things of that nature. But before we turn it over to Victoria, you have to meet this young lady. This is Beverly Hines, who is the president of the PTO at Weaver. And so we, as the lead community partner, we support the PTO at Weaver. And it's because of her persistence that we are here. So, Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Ms. Vicki. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, as you heard, I'm Ms. Beverly Hines, the PTO president at the Weaver High School. So we're here this afternoon because last year when I had learned of this project, we had requested a community meeting to inform us of, the ins and outs of this project, the pros and cons, and how it will benefit us as a community at Weaver and as a community at large. Now, somewhere along the line, the communication got disconnected. 2 months back, we met again at the Zoning and Planning Commission meeting, and the topic came up again. And I had brought it to light that we still didn't have the meeting yet. Now, as a representative of the parent body, the parents at Weaver High School has no information at all about this project. The staff, the faculty, very limited. We only hear of it by ear, but we cannot speak of it in depthly to say, okay, this is what the project entails. So then at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, I requested again that this meeting be had, and the commission did say, go ahead. They actually had, put the decision on pause and asked that CNG, along with University of Hartford, reach out to the community and have this very critical meeting. Because as parents, we want to know what's happening, especially where your child spends 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Every parent in here would like to know that their children's environment are safe. Am I right? Right. And this goes further than just our environment. It's about our health and everything that it comes with. So I want to say thank you for really respecting the Commission's request to come this evening and meet with us. And I'm looking forward to a very good meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, I'm Victoria Fennell. As Vicki said, I'm the other Vicki, Vicki 1 and Vicki 2, we always say. Chief Operating Officer for Blue Hills Civic Association, and I just want to extend a thank you to you all for showing up and doing this presentation. A big thank you to Beverly for her persistence, and to all the viewers out here that are watching this live, and of course our representatives from Weaver. My job tonight is just going to be to obviously listen, but also to make sure that you all stay on time. So I'm the bad guy. So you're going to see my hand go up. We have a run of show that we're going to kind of adhere to, but we're going to give you enough time, and then afterwards there'll be a Q&A, and I think there's a rebuttal and a rebuttal too. So without much further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. I'm just going to go into some quick introductions, and then we have probably maybe a 10 or 15 minute PowerPoint. I think we wanted to reserve most of the time for Q&A and get everyone's questions answered. My name is Mike Bray. I'm the Senior Manager of Gas Sales for CNG. The presenters are going to be Chris Dupree from the University of Hartford. Tony Sherman is the Commercial Account Manager for Connecticut Natural Gas. Lynn Ray is with Fuss and O'Neill, and will be presenting on the drilling aspect of the project. And then panelists, we have Todd Berman, who's the Senior Manager of Environmental Permitting, Paul Querfeld, Senior Manager of Gas Projects, and we have John Gould, who's a lead engineer at CNG. We'll also be all available for answering any questions that you guys might have. Yeah, Vicki.
Will anyone, would they be introducing themselves again? So
Sure.
we would do that very
Sure,
quickly.
absolutely.
Okay.
No problem. Oh, sorry, and we have our guests from Doosan. I believe Alex and John from Doosan here for fuel cell related questions if any folks have interest or questions around fuel cells. So with that, I'll probably kick it over to Chris to start the presentation.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you everybody for coming tonight. Just for the record, Chris Dupuis, in charge of facilities at the University of Hartford. And if you could advance the slides, please, to our first slide. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the project from a global level. So, University of Hartford is trying to install fuel cells on campus. I'm going to stand over here at this chart. Weaver High School is in this location. University of Hartford campus is in this location on the west of the railroad tracks that run between the properties. For point of reference, Granby Street's over here. Our fuel cell is being proposed to be in parking lot C, way down here in one of our lower parking lots near our East Hall building. CNG is proposing to extend gas to serve the fuel cell from an existing gas main that ends in about this area in the Weaver parking lot, run it approximately up to 200 feet to the railroad tracks, across the railroad tracks, and then across the university property down to the fuel cell site. Fuel cells consume natural gas to be powered, and CNG and Doosan can get into more details on that. This total length of pipe is about 2,300 feet, but less than 200 feet on the Weaver property. Next slide. Other items I just want to highlight and mention, many of you have probably seen these slides before at some of the past public hearings and meetings, some of the benefits to the state and the local community. This is a big part of the state of Connecticut and their sustainability initiatives to have more green and clean energy. The state has an aggressive goal by 2035, I believe, of having a lot more renewable energy. Fuel cells are a Connecticut Class 1 renewable energy. So a project like this will reduce the strain on the local electrical grid in the greater Hartford area. These fuel cells will serve about 60%, 60, of the university's electrical use every year. One thing that the university has as well is we have some MOUs with local partners, local hospitals, because we have a microgrid on campus. So we have currently 2 large diesel generators that provide emergency power to our entire campus. So in times of natural disasters, the university opens its doors to be an emergency shelter for the community, if and when that is needed. The last example we had of that was when we had that October snowstorm in 2011, and many of us were without power for 7, 8, 9, 10 days. I know the university was without power for 9 days itself during that time. And another part of this, it's a big part of our campus sustainability initiatives to be a steward of the environment and be more responsible. Having fuel cells on campus greatly reduces our carbon footprint, our air emissions, and long term, we could tie these into our microgrid system for emergency power to phase out the use of our diesel generators that currently power up our microgrid system. So those are some of the highlights of the general benefits to the community. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to CNG or Fuss and O'Neill for the next slides. Tony?
Thanks, Chris.
Hello. My name is Tony Sherman. I'm the commercial accountant manager for CNG. University of Hartford is one of my accounts. I just want to talk a little bit about the installation process. For those of you who met on site with us at 5 o'clock, We kind of went over this already, but for the others, for the benefit of the others, we'll go over it again. CNG, as part of the project, will install a high-density plastic gas line from the end of the existing service at Weaver High School in the traffic circle where we were in the turnaround to the railroad right-of-way, which is basically the fence adjacent to the property, and then to the fuel cell on the site of the University of Hartford campus. We brought a sample of what the high-density plastic pipe looks like, and for those who were at the site meeting, you felt it, and it's quite robust. The trench where the gas line will be installed is approximately 30 inches deep and only about 2 feet wide. We're not talking about a major sewer project here. It's a relatively small trench. And the pipe diameter, as we discussed, will be 6 inches, as John is running around with that pipe right now to show. CNG will be responsible for trench restoration, which includes loam and seed, as well as any paving to the damage or the intrusion on the traffic circle, and we discussed that as well. And we'll do all our installation will be coordinated with the city. Thank you, John. And that's the pipe. And we install this regularly throughout our entire service territory. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fuss and O'Neill. That was my lone slide.
Hi, good evening. My name's Lynn Ray, and I work for Fuss & O'Neill. We were contracted by CNG to support the environmental permitting for the river crossing. So that's this area right over here that crosses from Lot F to Lot D. For the first slide, this kind of just goes over the process. Crews are going to drill, horizontally drill underneath the Park River 10 feet. Through a 280 to 300 foot segment. We're not proposing any disturbance to the wetlands or the water course. All of the excavation will be in the paved areas. And in addition to the pipe that you just saw, they will also encase it in a 10-inch HD PE sleeve. In addition, just for the directional drilling segment. And then all the proposed construction and excavation, like I said, is in paved areas, and we're not anticipating or proposing any impact to vegetation. Next slide, please. And so we did, on March 8th, we received approval from the Greater Hartford Flood Commission. We went through an application process. So no material is going to be permanently placed in the floodplain. All existing elevations are going to be maintained. No fill. Areas are going to be completely restored. And we're also going to implement best management practices to control erosion and sediment across the site and any material. And that's it. Hand that back over to Michael.
Sure, yeah, why not? So we passed out FAQs. If folks didn't get them, I believe they're over on that table. I don't know, Leslie, if folks didn't have those. I don't know that I'm going to read through each FAQ one by one. Folks can take a minute to read those. Just wanted to provide those for folks as they were frequently asked. But we're happy to kind of open it up at this point for Q&A. Like I said, it was going to be a brief presentation. Wanted to provide most of the time for folks to ask questions. So I don't know, Vicky, number 2, if you want to go to the next presenter or you want us to answer questions. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I do. What about the neighbors? I mean, like, how is this going to impact the Granby Street area? Wait, just a minute. We got to try to get another mic so that we can hear.
Yeah. What about the neighbors, all of us in that Granby Street area, and from Weaver High School? I mean, if something happened, how are we going to be protected? And why aren't people here that's in my neighborhood? No one knows about this meeting. I mean, like, you know, some of us do, but I think that you should have called, I think you should have sent out some flyers or something to our neighbors and let them know what's going on at Weaver High School. There's always something going on, you know, and now you're going to build a underlying gas line or whatever. What if it blows up or something? What happens? You know, where are we going to go? Who do we contact? You know, we don't want no disasters here in this area, Granby Street. You know, I lived here all my life, and I never had all this. Weaver High School has been through so much. How many changes? You know, it's time that people start telling the neighbors about what's going on. And nobody knows what's going on, you know? And I don't think that's nice of you guys to do that. You know, I think that everybody, you should have sent out some literature to all of us and let us know what was happening. You know, because some of us don't even understand. I don't understand no gas line underneath this and that. I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? I understand the gas line, CNG and everything, but you know, people need to hear what you're saying, you know, so that they can understand. That's okay, babe. So they can understand what's happening, because we all live in that area. If a disaster happened, who do we call? You know, what do we do? Where are we at? You know? And I think you should have did a better job as far as letting the community know. Outreach. That's what we're hearing. Outreach. Community outreach. Yes, because none of my neighbors know about this meeting. You know? So, I mean, like, it might be good, it might be bad. But we all need to express ourselves and give our opinion as far as how we feel about this. You know, they're always doing something to Weaver, you know? Thank you, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, I'm gonna give this to Todd. I'm gonna try and address some of those points.
Thank you. So I'm Todd Berman, the Senior Manager for Environmental Permitting at Avangrid Networks. And I'll just, you sort of two parts to the question, right? One is the more global question of outreach. Address that second. The first one is when we think about risk, right? So right now, the Weaver High School, which is an important ref shelter for the community, is supplied by natural gas, right? So the infrastructure to supply that really important community resource has been there 50, 80 years, but you know, very much upgraded. So for example, the generator at the school requires natural gas. So if there was to be a prolonged power outage, you know, that would be a community refuge essentially powered by natural gas. So I think from a safety perspective, you know, this is the newest technology being applied to a system that has supported this community for quite a long time. Now, to the second question about outreach, that is a understandable, it's an appropriate question. You know, I think there are regulatory processes that you know, we're here for one of those, right? The Wetlands Commission has asked us to have this meeting, and we're doing it. And there have been various other regulatory processes that have required other you know, interactions with the community. You know, it's a complex question about where, you know, how much is needed, and it's different all the time, and there's no simple answer to that, right? Is that we work in the most regulated business there is, right? And so we do our community outreach sort of like we're doing it right now, right? Because we have a permitting authority has asked us, and we've done it. So that's how I would address that.
I just have a quick question for you. I think, you know, like,
I'm gonna shuttle this just so the folks on the.
I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm just thinking out loud here. Isn't this, you have a CNG, I would assume, has a public relations department. And so having worked in marketing and PR, that's usually part of the function of that department. So I'm wondering, what does CNG have internally where they do, you know, not so much maybe leaving it to you all, but maybe to that particular department to do that. So, I mean, people hear gas and, you know, let's be honest. You hear explosion, you see the news, it's very frightening. People are you can't even live in the area where these things happen afterwards. And I think that's what people are really concerned about. And I think maybe if there's an explanation about, you know, I mean, what you all are doing is great, but I think the CNG's PR department probably should be doing a little bit more in that particular area.
Good evening. Just to address some of the I guess I'll call it risks that you're mentioning. Throughout the Blue Hills area, we have had gas, as Todd said, for probably over 100 years. Some of our facilities have been replaced, and we continue to do that. We have a 20-year program to get rid of our older facilities. We are doing that. We got 10 years left. So throughout the years, we have done, many of the areas in Blue Hills area. East Euclid, Morningside area was probably the latest one where we've done some work. Brantford Street, the whole area surrounding that. Some of the things I discussed as part of this installation for the 2,300 feet would be this polyethylene plastic pipe is heat fused. Before we introduce gas into that, we do a pressure test, a time and a half of what the operating pressure is going to be. Make sure there are no leaks in that pipe before we introduce natural gas. We also do surveying of our facilities yearly. If it's a service, every 3 years we will walk those services and make sure there are no leaks. Hopefully that answers some of your questions.
Thank you. My name is Cynthia Jennings, and I'm an environmental attorney, and I was on city council many years ago, and this issue was discussed then. And one of the things that came up was there were 300 gas pipeline leaks in, I don't know whether it was Connecticut or whether it was in Hartford, but I know that the issue of gas line leaks was discussed, and I was chair of the Environment Committee, and at that point, that whole project died many years ago. So I was wondering, number one, how it got resurrected, and number two, what are the benefits and what are the risks? And what is the outreach?
Talk about cast iron replacement, leak surveys.
Yeah. So I'm going to be just really brief, but then Paul know the details. So I will say this, of the portfolio of work that both Southern Connecticut Gas and Connecticut Natural Gas does at this point, the vast majority of it at this point is steel replacement, right?
It's cast iron and bare
Yeah.
steel replacement.
So it is, the under our PURA directives, if you will, so we have an obligation in miles per year, I believe, right? Yeah.
Let me talk. We have a 20-year program to replace all our cast iron and bare steel facilities throughout our franchise. A lot of it is in Hartford, some of the older facilities. We have 10 years left. We're doing approximately 15 to 20 miles a year to meet that goal. So that entails construction work, which is replacing, excavating that main, replacing it, gassing it up. We then have to do a lot of service work to get newer facilities to the individual homes in the neighborhoods. And then we have, in cases, meters are inside, especially on the older facilities. We're trying to get those meters outside for accessibility. We then have to connect the new meter to the existing house piping. And then once that process goes, we can then abandon our old facility. So it is a very intensive process, but we are continuing to do it. As I said, about 15 to 20 miles a year. Probably on the order of, let's say 4 miles in the city of Hartford, West Hartford, New Britain, and other facilities.
And I'm going to piggyback on what Paul said in regards to outreach. Anytime we come into a neighborhood and do a replacement project, there's mailers, there's notification that goes out to residents stating that CNG is going to be in the area, completing work with a phone number to call, saying if you have any questions, please contact this number when those projects take place. So. Yeah. 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 We're skipping her.
I'll hand it to them.
Okay.
I must say, I have seen CNG in the neighborhood, but I have not seen the mailers. So what I've seen is the trucks, the drilling, all that fun stuff, but not the actual flyers.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because that is one of the pieces that I was going to bring to your attention. There are many times when we do see your trucks and your workers out there working, but we have not received any notification about the fact that you are going to be there or what you are working on. And if you are sending out information to residents, telling them to call a number, in many cases they're not going to do that. There should be something on there that says we're going to be in the area and this is what we are working on in the area, so that people are better informed. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Just to piggyback on what she said, and that's one of the reasons why we're here this afternoon. We didn't get the flyers, we didn't get the mailers, we didn't get the info.
Good evening, Angela Harris. I serve as the chair of the Health, Equity, and Environmental Justice Committee of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance. I got a few questions before, just trying to get a feel for the room before I ask my questions specific to this. How many of the folks here live in the project area? Okay. So I'm looking at the vendors, the University of Hartford folks, and nobody's raising their hand. Okay. For the folks that are watching online. I have some concerns when you mentioned, sir, that due to your regulatory requirements, you're at this meeting. As good neighbors, University of Hartford should not require regulatory authorities to put you before the community that you sit right adjacent to. That's for one. Number two, I have followed this process since I heard about it last year in the Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Environment Committee of the City Council. We raised questions then, and I still have some of the same questions now. Even after asking questions previously, I still can't wrap my mind around why going from a multi-million-dollar just renovated school in an environmentally injustice impacted neighborhood that's dealing with flooding issues and everything, if you're not aware, under a railroad, under wetlands, up the hill to University of Hartford to power a fuel cell, which, if powered and there's a brownout or blackout, will still not provide the University of Hartford with the electricity that it needs to keep operations going. I don't know who does the cost-benefit analysis for your group, but the costs and risks to the community that lies in Hartford, I don't see the benefit that would justify doing this project under the railroad, under the wetlands, up the hill to University of Hartford versus in the ground on Bloomfield Avenue where your university sits at 200 Bloomfield Avenue, where gas lines are generally located in the street where they can be addressed if there's a problem and not have a huge environmental impact should there be a problem. I asked for safety records in one of my previous meetings back when you all were engaging with the Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Environment Committee. Those answers didn't, the report that I received didn't really address what I had asked. If there is a problem, who owns the problem? What's the time frame? And who pays for the damages, not only to the environment, but to public, the residents' properties, devaluation of properties? There's a lot of things that go into this, and again, the cost-benefit analysis, I'm not seeing it. So if someone could please address that for me, and well, I'm gonna leave it at that, and maybe I can have a follow-up.
We'll try to address everything you asked, Angela. I'm just gonna hopefully, I might ask you to repeat a couple of them because there's, I think, a lot of stuff in there. So cost-benefit analysis on the project, the alternative route that we looked at was cost prohibitive, completely cost prohibitive to be able to serve the university. You know.
Can you expound
Where
upon
is
that?
that other point?
Paul, do you want to? You're more familiar. Sorry. Maybe we'll bring one.
You want to pull up the
Yeah, pull up the
satellite map?
Yeah.
To show it on the screen? I think that'd be helpful. Just give us a minute. We're going to try and get an overall satellite image so you can see.
Oh, I lost the. How do I bring back the picture?
HDMI, wiggle the cord.
Thank you. You want to bring Bloomfield Avenue, Paul?
Yeah, it's Cottage Grove Road at Bloomfield Ave.
Sorry. Cottage Grove, right? Cottage Grove Road in Bloomfield?
Bloomfield, yeah.
Switch to the satellite view when you have a chance.
Where am I going here?
I'm trying to figure out where, yeah, you're close. 218 is right there. Yep. So you can go head north. Oh.
Am I going up?
No, you're good. I was just trying to show everything. Cottage Grove Road at Bloomfield Ave is right there. That would be where we could pick up pipe. I believe it's over 12,000 feet to get to the campus. And it's on state roads. Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to repeat?
Yes.
We will start, our other alternative was to go at Cottage Grove at Bloomfield Ave. About just over 12,000 feet of pipe on a state road. We would then have to go through the campus as well, which I believe was another 1,600 feet, or give or take. And that's the excavation cost to do that made the project cost prohibitive. Sorry, excuse me.
And just to your point of why the project takes place, like CNG, if a customer requests gas service, you know, we cost out the option for a customer to be able to take gas service. So the University of Hartford made the request for gas service. So CNG, you know, through Paul's group, went ahead and evaluated the scope of the project. That's how that analysis kind of comes to be. It's per customer request. We don't proactively go put new gas pipe in without an end user on the other side of it, essentially. And in regards to like ownership over the pipe, if there were a leak or a safety concern, CNG owns all the gas pipe up to the gas meter itself. Anything behind the gas meter would be the end user, the customer's responsibility. So in regards to leak surveys and whatnot, Paul's, you know, can speak to a little bit of that. You know, our response time, I think we're in the 99 percentile of any leaks. We respond within 30 minutes of class 1 leaks. Class 2 leaks, I believe, are within 45 minutes. And we're very proud of that safety record. I don't know if you have anything. Yeah.
We also have a 24/7 dispatch. Any leak response, we have crews, customer service vehicles to make sure we don't have an issue.
Did you have I know I got multiple questions, but I'll give you Angela. Oh, I hate Angela. Can I give Angela just a rebuttal and then I'll give it to you? Or?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Here, Angela, and then I want to talk.
So with this being a unpopulated area, like the back of the school, after school lets out, no one's back there to smell a leak, right? Right? Okay. So I still didn't hear the cost benefit analysis. You said it was prohibitive. Work with me on understanding, one, as many institutions are divesting from fossil fuels, why the University of Hartford would be increasing its use of, you know, gasoline. There are other alternatives, and as fuel cells go, if you go through all of this expense and risk to the community and are still left in the dark in a brownout or blackout, are there other options that perhaps the fuel cell company could have presented that would at least have all that effort leave you with power? There's got to be some kind of an upgraded situation where you would at least have power and be a safe haven for, you know, God forbid, your neighbors who might also be in a blackout situation.
Thank you, Angela. I wanted to clarify that university will still have power because we have a microgrid system that operates when we have loss of power, whether it be from the fuel cell or from the utility company from Eversource that serves our substation. Our goal is, and fuel cells are recognized as a green renewable energy in the state of Connecticut. It's a class 1 energy, renewable energy, just like solar panels are. So we still have power. We still will be an emergency fallout shelter if the fuel cell goes off.
Okay, I still did not, because I chaired the Parks, Public Works, and the Environment Committee when this issue was discussed before. So my question was, how did it get resurrected again? What happened to stop it in the first place? And why would a renewable form of energy require gasoline or gas, methane gas, in order to power it? And certainly, why would we want to put a gas pipeline underneath a railroad track that currently or was in the past transporting nuclear waste, okay, and other things that God knows what they transport right behind Weaver High School. And so I really am concerned about why was this resurrected, whose idea was this, and how did it come back into existence again?
I want to make sure I'm clear on the Parks and Rec Committee. So CNG, I'm sorry, Parks, Public Works and the Environment Committee, thank you. CNG approached that committee for an easement for the 200 feet of gas pipe on Weaver property. That was approved by the City Council and by the committee. This meeting and what CNG has requested is from the Inland Wetland Committee for the river crossing. So there's multiple segments to this project. I want to make sure the purpose for this outreach is specific to the proposed river crossing. In regards to crossing the railroad, Paul, do you want to just speak to railroad crossing?
So you said you do have the easement already?
The easement for the portion of pipe on Weaver property for 200 feet has been approved.
By?
The City of Hartford, the council, City Council.
September 2022.
Correct.
There's a sheet over there about that.
There's a handout.
So did it come out of the committee? Because the committee meeting got canceled in September.
Sorry.
So just to refresh your memory, we were there in August. You all were requested to meet with the community. That meeting was supposed to happen prior to the September meeting, which didn't happen. And the September 14th, I believe it was a Wednesday meeting, was canceled, okay? We haven't heard anything since the May Planning and Economic Zoning Commission meeting. So, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. So, you all got your approval and forgot about the community? Is that what I'm ascertaining? Because the communication, this meeting was supposed to happen back in August. And remember, we said, it's August. Folks are not, back from summer vacation. We need to meet at Weaver during the school year. And now it's June. The school year is over and people are what? Headed back out for a summer vacation. So it just is really a mystery to me why, and even how the City Council got that out of committee without letting the community know that they discharged it from the committee when you all didn't adhere to what that committee asked you to do. I have a problem with that.
I don't know that we're in a position to speak about the city council's actions. They granted the approval. That's all I can speak to on that. I wish I had more, could provide more of an answer for you, but we received the approval, so that's all I can say in that regard. And I know you had another question that I forgot regarding that. I know you were talking about the Parks and Rec approval, and then you had another question. I think it was on the railroad?
Well, my other question was, how and who resurrected this particular process, particularly when the council was voting and the community was not aware? So I'm just wondering how this happened. Was this a backroom kind of deal? I mean, who knew that this vote was taking place? Because I live 3 blocks from there, and I have not heard a thing.
I don't know that I can, again, I don't know that I can answer that. I wish I could. So, again, the project never.
No, but I think you answered it actually. So,
I want to make sure the folks on the webcam here too. Sorry.
So, what's resurrected the discussion tonight was a request from the inland wetlands, right? So I can't really speak to those, like Mike, I can't speak to those historic planning and zoning and those kind of things. But what brought us here tonight was the request of inland wetlands.
As it relates to inland wetlands, which is a subset of the Planning and Zoning Commission, we were there at the May 23rd meeting requesting this meeting. Question as it relates to experience. Where else have you done this type of work under railroads, through wetlands, from schools? Is there another location in the state of Connecticut that we could go see that, oh yes, this has been operating for 10 years, no problem? Like, is there a place that we can go and see that the same type of situation has occurred elsewhere?
I'm going to give it to Paul. And yes, there are several instances of railroad crossings, river crossings. I'll let Todd and Paul speak to.
We are under railroad tracks often, I shouldn't say often, but 20, 30 within our territories, I'm sure. There's more. Homestead Ave, where's that one, John? By Garden Street? Just downside from Hartford Insurance Company, Ashley Street area. Connected, the pipe is connected to our current distribution system. There's also another crossing, Cottage Grove, and it's escaping me what side street, but it's in Bloomfield, not too far from here as well.
And there are several other
examples.
Yeah. Those are just local.
I'm trying to give some local ones. I can't think of one where a railroad's near a school.
Yeah, not off the top of my head, but in our. Yeah, right. So I can't off the top of my head think of one for a school, but I am sure over the whole service territories we have natural gas line. Right now we supply the generator at that school. So and it's the fundamental source of energy at the school. So yeah, there will definitely be other crossings in Hartford that have been operational for a long, long time.
But not just in Hartford, that's all across our service territory. That's Connecticut Natural Gas, Southern Connecticut Gas, that's across the state. There are river crossings, there are railroad crossings that have happened safely without incident, I believe all of them, or the majority of them. So.
With the same type of piping?
Yep.
Yes, yes. And typically for railroad crossings, we will have a steel sleeve, and then we will put the carrier pipe through it, and we have venting on both sides of that in case there is a leak, and we'll know that we have a leak and we need to obviously fix that.
And it's in the FAQs, but that plastic, high-density plastic pipe is used in 95% of CNG's gas installations. So that is the most commonly used material for Connecticut natural gas.
You alluded to the aged infrastructure in Hartford earlier, right? And I do have a question as it relates to the PSI, the pounds per square inch, that the gas will be running through these lines, and what impact that will have on existing infrastructure adjacent to the school, because those, as you mentioned, are some of the oldest gas lines in the area, in the state.
Come on over. Come on over. Come on, guys.
Trying to describe our distribution system, there are different pressure systems in our systems. The one we're talking about here is off the 100-pound system. A lot of it is on Granby Street and the Blue Hills area neighborhood that we're expanding and replacing those facilities. The older pipe that we're trying to get, replace is low pressure, inches water column, approximately a quarter pound per square inch. So those are not tied into this system that we're doing. And the Weaver High School since early 70s has been supplied by that same 100-pound system. Does that answer some of your questions?
And typical residential equipment requires less than 6 inches water column, like a standard, boiler, stove, water heater, those types of things. So what Paul's saying is this will have no impact to the communities and neighborhoods neighboring this in terms of the pressure that they're going to have for their existing gas service. There will be no negative impacts to that system.
And what happens, so for instance, that Branford, East Euclid area where we went 100 pounds for the gas lines, you'll see a small disc before the meter, and that regulates the pressure from that 100-pound to inches water column for the appliances.
No, one of the questions I had as well is that Hartford has an astronomical asthma rate and respiratory conditions. What are the threats of respiratory illnesses and others, particularly from these gas leaks that you haven't addressed yet? But with all these gas leaks in our city, what impact does that have on health?
So it's a very fair question. So what are the cumulative health risks of gas leaks? I am not a risk assessor, right? So I can't really give you a quantifiable response to that. I would say kind of generally that, asthma risk is tied to particulate, it's tied, but the more we can reduce burning of fossil fuels, the health risk picture sort of improves for everybody. And that, I think that's on the upside for the fuel cell. I can't really answer the question of what's the level of risk based on known leak conditions. So
can we get an answer from some professionals that agree on what the risks are for gas leaks?
Yeah, so I think the answer is quite possibly yes. I don't think we can associate that with this wetlands matter. It's an incredibly complex risk, modeling exercise. We can't really associate it with this particular permit crossing, but it's work product that can be created.
I know Josh, I know you.
I would like to just offer up some statistics regarding health equity and some of the impact of negative environmental conditions like, gas, like landfills, like, sewage in the water, those type things. There is documented, and you can look up on policy maps, a 15 to 20 year life expectancy gap between households in Hartford versus households 3 miles away in West Hartford. So when you say it's cost prohibitive to run the gas line in Bloomfield Avenue under the ground where gas lines normally go, and you want to attach it to a school, under a railroad, under wetlands, up the hill to University of Hartford, these are the types of decisions that drive those statistics over the course of time. Don't believe me, look it up. 15 to 20 years difference. And we have for several years now been just trying to get a simple grocery store in our neighborhood. And we can't get that, but you're gonna do something incredibly, potentially harmful if something goes wrong. That could have devastating impacts. In terms of environmental justice, I'm not seeing the cost and the benefit to the community in Hartford, the neighborhoods around Hartford, the faculty and administrators and the students that attend Weaver High School every day. That's a potential risk every day. You just never know. Disasters, natural and otherwise, happen all the time. And I just don't see it. I'm sorry.
I'm going to address part of what you said. The project is for the direct benefit of the University of Hartford. I want to be very clear. You know, the request was made for the university to serve their fuel cell. That's what CNG is proposing to do, is to serve the University of Hartford fuel cell. I don't want to conflate that we're trying to sell something else. I just want to be very upfront and forthright about that. John, oh, sorry. She's been waiting too. She's been waiting.
All right. The thing that keeps coming back to me is the benefit to the University of Hartford, but not necessarily what the benefit to the Hartford residents and those people in that area are. And this is why the residents are asking the questions. This is why they've asked us to have this meeting, is what benefit is the University of Hartford's fuel cell, what is that gonna do for the people of Hartford who live in that area, or even Weaver High School who live in that area? That's the real question that we would like an answer to.
I'll respond and I'll give it to you, I promise. I mean, Chris, you touched on it in the beginning part of your presentation. I mean, I think the major benefit is to the university, but there are some ancillary benefits that Chris highlighted in his presentation.
Yeah, there are ancillary benefits to the greater Hartford area. There's no doubt the direct benefit is to the University of Hartford campus. I will say that the city of Hartford does have 2 fuel cells that I'm aware of that directly benefit city properties. There is one that's been installed for 7 or 8 years, I believe, at their public safety complex, the police headquarters. It's also a facility by the same manufacturer that the university is using, Hyaxium, a Doosan company. The second one is part of a microgrid that the city did down the Parkville section, where they worked with, I believe Bloom was the fuel cell manufacturer on that. And they have a small microgrid that provides emergency power during power outages to the C-Town grocery store, to the gas station, and to the public library, all at the intersection of New Park and Park Street. So certainly the city and the residents could ask the city to do a fuel cell at Weaver to directly benefit Weaver High School. Now, the university also has a consultant, an energy consultant we use. They're named Bridge Energy Services. They are also an energy consultant for the city of Hartford, the same exact consultant. And at one of the past meetings, one of Bridge Energy's principals, Mike Sassy, had indicated that Weaver High School would be a good candidate for a fuel cell. So certainly, you could receive some of the same direct benefits and also extend some benefits to the grid in the greater state and city neighborhood if you encouraged your leaders to try and install a fuel cell to serve Weaver High School?
I think there's educational opportunity as well. Yeah, I'm just going to add on that and I'll hand it over. I think there's educational opportunity too for the community, you know, for the Weaver High students to learn more about fuel cells. I know, you know, Doosan, the university are very willing and open to have those discussions and use it as a learning platform for students. So again, there are some ancillary benefits, but the direct benefit is definitely for the university, not trying to beat around the bush on that.
Good evening, everyone. And actually, I had a lot of questions, some of them which were answered by, were asked by some of the other folks in the room, and I appreciate them for asking those questions. But I'm glad you brought up that last point, because oftentimes things happen in our community, and we talk about a community benefits agreement. And so when this project, when we talked about it last year, the question was, how can this benefit the Blue Hills neighborhood, specifically that area around Granby Street, Weaver High School? And so one of my questions was like, how large, or what is the potential capacity of the fuel cell generator that you're building on your campus, and how much larger could it be, and whether or not there could be a tie-in from our community in Weaver High School to that fuel cell generator?
Okay. Thank you, Josh, for the question. So the size of the fuel cells, and I don't want to make people's eyes gloss over, is 1.84 megawatts, and I'm not quoting the Back to the Future line. Okay, so the fuel cells as sized serve 60% of our annual electricity use at the University of Hartford campus. So it's a lot of energy. I don't believe, it's my understanding from Pura and Eversource, we would not be able to extend direct power from our substation, our electrical meter campus, over to Weaver High School. We cannot do a direct connection like that. It's not allowed by regulation. This fuel cell is being installed what they call behind the meter. So it ties into electricity behind our meter from Eversource so that the power gets drawn first by the university community. Any power that is not used by our campus gets put back out to the utility grid generically. So in times where we have lower occupancy on the campus and lower electricity use, maybe a semester break, students are home for a month between the fall semester and the spring semester, we don't use 1.84 megawatts of electricity. We use about 1 megawatt during our low periods of consumption. That extra 0.84 megawatts gets put back on the utility grid and for general public consumption. That's how it works. That's part of the reason I was recommending that if you're interested in getting the direct benefits that a fuel cell can offer, please talk to your city leaders, talk to Bridge Energy Services, do a study, and try and get one to serve Weaver High School.
I gotta give it back to him. I'll give it to you. I promise.
Thank you for that answer. The other question I had is and this goes to some of the other questions that folks have in terms of the current infrastructure that exists on the Weaver campus. And I'm not sure if anybody here can answer that question relative to when the renovation happened, whether or not the gas line that's there, was that newly installed when that renovation took place, or are we tying into a 30-year-old line? And so that's one of my questions.
During the time of the addition to Weaver High School, we have a 6-inch steel line that has served the school since the early 70s. So we did not have to replace that line. It's steel, it's cathodically protected, it's coated pipe. We did, however, have to replace the existing service to the school because of the addition. So we did run a new 2-inch high-density polyethylene pipe, smaller size, 2-inch diameter instead of that is 6, to the new meter location at the new addition.
There's new service to the school. What is the timeline
Right now the one is there is 50 years old. So are we saying 10, 20 more years, 30 more years, 100 more years? Like what is
On the existing steel pipe, I would say, and again, we will make sure it doesn't leak. If it starts leaking, we will replace because of those issues. I would say another 50 years, potentially, yeah. Yeah, 100 years probably. Yep. I'm gonna.
A lot of them were asked, and they responded. So, and I know that, and it was pretty much a surprise to everybody here. So, as far as the easement being approved by City Council, and so the concern I have, because of course I wear two hats, state representative, but also assistant principal at Weaver High School. And so, how long is the construction going to take for that 200 feet of pipe? Because that's a critical piece for us, because once again, it's on our traffic circle. And I'm hoping that's not taking place during school operations where we would be impacted.
Good question. We certainly are trying to get this done while school is out, first and foremost. If for some reason the timeline, is delayed, we will work and try to do that on a Saturday outside of the typical school hours. Oh, okay, sorry. I would say approximately 2 to 3 weeks. Certainly the railroad crossing due to the direct. Okay. Probably a week on that for that 200 feet. I'm just trying to manage when we do the pipe under the railroad tracks. We will have to have an excavation on both sides of those tracks to get that directionally bored. So there is some time to do that as well.
Right. Physically in the parking lot area,
within a week.
And just one last question, and this is actually related to the wetlands. How far under the wetlands is the pipe going to be laid? That's just a question, because we found out this is just about wetlands today.
So it's about 280 feet underneath the wetlands. They're going to directional drill from the parking lot. They're going to excavate a pit and go 280 feet roughly underneath the channel in the wetland.
no, that's the depth.
The depth. Below the bottom. 10 feet. 10 feet. They're going to maintain 10 feet below.
10 feet below the wetlands. And
Yes.
There
There is some like micro, I think a couple of other utilities that are also running under the channel, and this will be, I think those are at a depth of 5 feet, so this will be deeper. This will go deeper than what's existing.
Yeah, we already have 2 directional drill crossings underneath that same section of river. One is our fiber optic telecommunication line that's 5 feet below the river bottom. And when we did the microgrid, we have medium voltage power also underneath the river in that area. So it's kind of a utility corridor on our campus. And CNG is proposing to add a gas pipe in that same area under that river crossing at an additional 5 feet deeper than the 2 existing utilities underneath the river that were installed in 2016 and 2008, plus or minus, were the last 2 times we did directional drilling under that river.
I don't know if you can put the map back so that you can see where the end, the fuel cell will be. If you could just slide it back a little bit. I have a question. There's another school right up the street, University High of Engineering. do they have a similar 6-inch wide pipeline? And what, because that seems to me that would be actually closer to the final destination point. So is there a reason why you're not attaching it there, if they have one? Because that's fairly new as well.
I know generally that's probably about 10, 15 years old. I believe it's a service, and I think it's 1.25 or 2 inch going to that magnet school. And at a lower pressure that would not suffice for the fuel cell.
You all never shared the cost benefit analysis numbers. What's the difference between running on Bloomfield Avenue and running it under the railroad through the wetlands up to the campus? What numbers are we talking about?
It's very significant. I believe the cost.
C&D can get you the exact numbers. We
Yeah.
did share that.
Y'all didn't bring those numbers to this meeting?
No, I'm happy to share those. Happy to share them, but it was millions of dollars to serve.
July meeting presentation for Parks and Rec Environment.
So you don't have that one?
That information was in the July 2022 Parks and Rec.
Online and here, you don't have that number?
No.
All the vendors here, nobody has that number?
Nope, we just have the number for the proposal, because that alternative route was not considered after the financials were determined. So again, we proposed, based on the university's request, the most cost-effective, safest option to provide them service, and that's the estimate that we. Oh, sorry.
We were wrong. We have the number. Thank you, Lynn and Fuss and O'Neill. As this from the this is from the Inland Wetlands application. Some of the materials that were presented for the May meeting. The customer contribution cost is $175,000 for the 2,300 foot option, and the customer contribution cost for the 12,000 linear foot option is $2.4 million.
Would you repeat that again, the last one?
$2.4 million for the 12,000 linear foot option to extend the gas from Cottage Grove Road all the way down to the site versus .175 or $175,000 to extend it from the Weaver parking lot.
And that was customer?
That's the customer portion, customers.
So the customer portion, they're buying CNG's product. There's a cost to CNG for this. Is there similar differences in the cost? Again, the overall cost benefit analysis, that's what I'm looking at, because I think I recall a double-digit $1 million when it was talked about going on Bloomfield Avenue. And I'm also looking at the multiple projects you all have with the neighborhood assistance tax credit, and you all seem to have, like, I think it was like 10 projects. You'll have money coming to the university from somewhere proposed. So why would this not be something that you would pay for and have that be a cost that you all absorb?
Are you speaking to why the university wouldn't? Or, so I'll speak to C&G's, I guess, financial analysis on how we treat all of our customers. So we take the proposed revenue or proposed usage from a customer, whether it's residential, commercial, whatever type of end user. We forecast that consumption out over a 15-year period against what it's going to cost us to serve the customer. Every customer has to stand on their own 2 feet, so to speak. We don't allow the rest of our rate base to subsidize a new customer coming on. So that's a regulatory requirement. So in this case, the total construction cost for the project minus 15 years of revenue from the fuel cell is what was left for the contribution for the University of Hartford. That's how that math came to be, with the 175 versus the 2.4 million. So our costs are significantly higher than that. I couldn't tell you the numbers, I don't know that they're public. but they're significantly higher than the 2.4 or the 175.
So in layman's terms.
Yeah, sorry.
In layman's terms, you're calculating what would be, say, in spring break, summer break, that energy that you're giving back to the grid, you all are calculating that into the cost savings? Work with me.
Sure. The calculation is solely to provide gas service to the University of Hartford. So we're only calculating based off of what the university has shared they're going to use. We take all of that usage, we put it into a model against what it's going to cost our company to do the work. Anything that they don't use and sell back to the grid is completely separate. It's completely between the university and Eversource. Hopefully that helps clarify a little bit.
So I had similar questions, and I asked C&G to explain it to me so I could understand it, so I could share it. So this is my understanding. I don't have the total cost numbers. I have order of magnitude. We will confirm the total cost. So for the shorter pipe route, say it costs C&G, I think it's an order of magnitude of $2 million total cost to install that 2,300 feet of pipe. Over 15 years, they plan to recover for the gas ratepayers, for everybody that pays for natural gas. Let me do the math, $1.825 million, all but $175,000 will be recovered through the gas bill that gets paid every month over 15 years. So that difference by the University of Hartford. Okay, that gets paid by the University of Hartford. That's how they are regulated. So if we go to the longer pipe install, I think that was about $12 million total construction cost. So that means the university would be paying $9.6 million over 15 years versus the upfront customer contribution of $2.4 million. Does that help clarify how I understand C&G's formula?
So $7 million.
$9.5 million difference.
So the CNG costs, as Chris shared, $12 million for the longer route, approximately $2 and change million for the shorter route. So CNG's costs, which aren't necessarily, I mean, I don't know that they're of relevance because it's the university's costs that really, at the end of the day, they're going to be responsible for whatever the costs are. So their responsibility is 175 or 2.4 essentially. Upfront, correct.
And then the rest of it is paid off over 15 years.
Through the revenue we generate through their bills that they pay for. Again, the intent is that we cannot have our existing rate base pay for new customers. So they're solely responsible for paying for that connection fee, so to speak. Hopefully that, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I have another question. Number one, electromagnetic fields. Are there any electromagnetic fields or radio frequency associated with this project at all?
Give our friends at Doosan a chance to answer.
No.
No.
Okay. My other question is, would this be an underground facility across the board in Bloomfield and in Hartford? Okay, so the amount of money to build it would be essentially the same, just more per foot, because they're all underground. Okay, and number three, what is the impact on the wetlands, and how are you going to replace or the wetlands that you destroy, if any?
So we're not proposing any surface disturbance to the wetland or water course. All excavation is going to be within the outside of the 100-year floodplain and regulated area. That's what's as proposed in the parking lot. So they're going to excavate the entry and exit pits for the directional drilling in the parking area and drill beneath the wetland and water course, which means there's not going to be any dredging, any fill, any impoundment, or vegetation removal proposed.
Can you comment on the event of a gas leak? In the event of a gas leak, then what happens to the wetlands? What happens to the environment?
I think Lynn said we will be putting a 10-inch polyethylene sleeve as part of that directional bore underneath the river. If there's a sleeve, it's another plastic pipe that doesn't carry gas but will protect if there's a leak under that river. It should go away from the river. We will be able to detect that leak if it occurs. And if we do, we have to shut down and obviously repair that leak. In that case, the sleeve is still there. If it needs to be replaced, there's a potential of just taking that section out and reintroducing a new pipe underneath that sleeve. And we would not have to disturb that wetlands area again. That's the reason for the sleeve.
I believe it was brought up earlier, communications. I guess CNG has a communications PR department. It seems that minimal communication was done by CNG, not University of Hartford, not Blue Hills Civic, but by CNG on this process. And this is up front. After construction, during operations, if there's a problem, what confidence does the community have that you would be forthright in your communications should something go wrong?
Again, I think if you look at the location of the pipe, I think that may have been part of the, I guess, lack of communication. We can always be better, right? We're always going to try to be better in terms of communicating with all of our customers. We can always do better, whether it's direct mail, social media, email, whatever it might be. But in regards to our safety record, nothing we install is going to be live pipe. Everything's plastic. There's nothing running through it. Obviously, if customers have concerns, you can absolutely contact us. I'm happy to give out my personal phone number. You can call me directly if there's a problem. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Again, all I can speak to in terms of outreach, we can continue to improve, period. You know what I mean? If you guys feel that way, then we need to take that feedback and act upon it. We're happy to do that.
And from a university perspective, we heard your team loud and clear at the meetings last summer. And so since then, as a university representative for most of our construction projects, I have personally taken the time to reach out proactively to improve our communication to our neighbors. I did this with our track project, which is fully contained within the University of Hartford property, has no utility extensions from any of our neighbors. And I did reach out specifically to Blue Hills Civic, Blue Hills NRZ, Upper Albany NRZ, the mouth organization that I learned about must only use to help. And so we are all striving to improve our communication, and we are trying hard to be better as we move forward.
Hold it, Chris. I want to put you back right there on the spot. Okay. In terms of being good neighbors, how would you describe your relationship with Weaver right now? And the students of Weaver High School, what are the benefits that the university extends to them?
I am not qualified to tell you the benefits that we currently extend to Weaver High School. I can try to research and give you information on that. I can say, and am qualified to say, we are always interested in expanding those opportunities. So one thing that I think we've talked about, partnering with Hyaxium, the Doosan company for the fuel cell manufacturer, that if you have any students that are interested in STEM, in science, in engineering, if they want to participate with Doosan, our faculty, to do some tours of the fuel cells to talk about how it converts natural gas to electricity, and it converts it. It doesn't burn it. They're the experts. This is my summary of it. It converts it. That's how it is cleaner. It's cleaner than the electricity currently supplied to our campus by Eversource. It reduces combustion of natural gas because it converts it. It puts off mostly water and heat, or its byproducts. All right, I'm doing good. I got the thumbs up. So we will gladly, and I can help facilitate those partnerships. They stick me in facilities and keep me to construction projects and maintaining our buildings. I don't create those partnerships, and I can't plead that I understand all of our community partnerships, including Weaver, but we're always happy to try and expand those.
I'm going to piggyback on that too. You know, CNG for perspective, again, I'm not in charge of our community relationships in that area, but we're interested in that as well. You know, you can work through me. I'm happy to facilitate those conversations and how we can be better and better engage the community. Please, you know, come to me. I welcome it. Please do.
And we will. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get up first because I know. I'm sorry. What I would like to say is first, thank you.
I got you.
Okay, first I want to thank you for taking the time to better explain what it is you are trying to do. For the community, from here on out, it would benefit you as well as the community if you did a better job of communicating with us using organizations like the Blue Hills Civic Association and others who actually work actively with the community. So more of these types of meetings, more explanations for the community would really be beneficial to all of us. Okay?
Thank you. And I just wanted to say that in New Haven, we have Yale. In Hartford, we have University of Hartford. Yale allows New Haven students, many of them, to attend for free. We expect the same relationship with University of Hartford and any other university that's within our location, be close to us or within our geographical boundaries. The other thing that would be important is that when I was on the school building committee for building Weaver, rebuilding the Weaver High School, I had a student who worked for and got paid by one of the environmental not the environmental firms, the architectural companies that was actually designing Weaver. And that student had the instruction that make that school transparent, make that school a beautiful learning experience, and if it's not, report back to the school building committee and let us know what they're doing wrong and what they need to do. And we had an arrangement that that architectural firm would involve him in every single meeting, and at the end, he would report to us and let us know every meeting what was going on and what changes had been made. And it was very effective, and that student went on, he graduated before Weaver reopened. He pulled back his graduation and stayed another year to make sure that school was properly built. So our students care about what's happening. Weaver students care. And when you're dealing with a student, they will pay attention to what's going on, more so than the teachers and the principals. They will pay attention to what's going on, and we will know that our system is safe or unsafe based on whether or not that student understands what's going on, and they understand the importance of it. So I would certainly recommend that a student or a group of students be involved in every single meeting that's going on that affects this pipeline and everything that's going on, so that they understand what a fuel cell is and what it can do for the school and what it can do for the community and what it can do to the community. So that's just my recommendation on how we move forward to make sure that our students are actively involved, because in another 10 years, they will be the ones running the city.
Hello, my name is Rhonda. I'm the liaison for Mouth Block Watch. My question, of the 350 acres that are on the University of Hartford campus, am I understanding it correctly that there's no gas on that campus at all that's being utilized?
There is gas on the campus. The fuel cell needs a specific pressure to satisfy the electric needs and capacity. So the current gas lines on the campus is not sufficient enough to meet the needs of the input to the fuel cell.
I know you all are probably tired of hearing me, but I do have one closing comment. Earlier, I asked,
how many of the folks that are here from the university, from CNG, from the vendors, Doosan and Avant Grid and all, how many are from the neighborhood? And it's just very telling to me that none of you all are from the neighborhood, and none of you all represent or reflect the city of Hartford in terms of its ethnic makeup. This is a majority Black and brown community, and I would think, following the comments regarding access to education, higher education, working with students interested in STEM, that you would seize this opportunity as you all are seeking this community benefit, is to give back and have an opportunity for folks to, 10 years from now, when you want another project, have folks that reflect the community as part of your staffs. That's not a heavy lift, and it's something that I would hope that you all would aspire to.
I just want to piggyback. I have a couple of comments. I've been sitting there quietly listening to everyone. And to piggyback on what Angela is talking about, I would love to see, and if you can provide that for CNG, your DEI initiatives, okay? The same thing for the University of Hartford, because I am disappointed that I'm not seeing more racial diversity sitting here. The other thing is, I think, Chris, that you have a huge opportunity, if you could take it back to the powers that be at the University of Hartford, to actually take it up a couple of notches as far as your relationship with Weaver. Because Weaver and University of Hartford has been sitting side by side for years. And I know, as Attorney Jennings said, other institutions have adopted the schools that's right in their arena. And so there's a lot of benefits for you all to do the same thing for Weaver. And so I would like to see something as far as in writing. And so I'm saying this for the record and for our viewers, that I would like to see something in writing for University of Hartford's game plan to do something proactively in that area. The other question that I have is, because of the lack of diversity that I see a lot of times CNG will come into the neighborhoods, but I don't see anyone who looks like me. So again, what are you gonna do? This actually goes through as far as jobs. I see that you use the word specialized, and sometimes that means that, well, we can't find anybody who look like you because it's so specialized. So what is your plan to make sure that residents in our area actually have access to those jobs and actually get those jobs? The other thing is, I am very disappointed regarding the lack of outreach. And so therefore, here we're a small community-based organization that we had to expend our time and our dollars to try to make sure that a community meeting happened. And for the record, going back to the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting that we all attended here, you were asked to have this community meeting, and if it hadn't been for our PTO president, this meeting would not have happened. And so it was the persistence of the community to say, we need to talk, we need to get our questions answered. And so, and I'm just gonna go on record, when you meet with the various committees and subcommittees at the city government, that's not representing the community. You need to come into the community and have face-to-face dialogue with us, and I think that was evident tonight. I want to go back to a recommendation that Representative Hall made. I would like to see a community benefit agreement. Anytime we have large initiatives happening in our community, a community benefit agreement needs to be in writing, talking about roles and responsibilities, and then the direct benefit to the community in which this is going to impact. My last question is, I just want to be very clear. I thought I heard the question, or the question answered. Will we as residents incur additional costs from a gas standpoint? Okay, so the answer is no. And I think that's it. So again, I'm looking for some things in writing from the University of Hartford and then from CNG. Thank you.
In my closing, I just wanted to say that we're talking about conglomerates here. We're talking about people with money. And the last thing we should do is be expending the resources of a community-based organization that has limited, very limited resources to make copies, to make phone calls, and do whatever has to be done. So I think that part of that community benefits agreement has to include supporting the finances of these small organizations that are right now making sure that you can meet your PURA requirements.
Okay, we have some questions from our viewers online.
Yeah, sure. They're not too many questions, but there are some statements that we had. Sure, our brother Kelvin Lovejoy, Blue Hill Civic Association, community organizing. And we had a few folks who are actually online, not only making good statements, but there were a few questions, concerns about, again, the cost effectiveness, and I think we heard some of the answers on that. There were questions regarding the risk to the environment, negative impacts around the ozone layers that came up. Also in terms of any levels of radiation, I think we might have heard something about that also, that was addressed. So just a few things that we wanted to just make sure that folks online were recognized and heard as also. Actual numbers in terms of the cost. Yeah. Okay. I think we did a pretty good job in terms of questions that were here.
If there are questions afterwards, please.
Great.
Send them over. You can send them to me.
Okay.
We'll make sure we get you answers.
Sure.
One of the questions here was asking how many homes will be directly impacted by the digging underground?
I believe the answer is 0. All the work is going to take place on the portion of Weaver parking lot, and then 85% of the digging is going to be on university's campus. So I believe the answer is 0. There are other online. Yeah.
Question, is this something you would do in your neighborhood?
Yes, I had gas installed in my neighborhood last year. I don't know others, if you want to speak to it.
I have gas as well.
I'm not on the gas. Wait, would you?
Gas or fuel cell?
I'm sorry?
Gas or the fuel cell?
I personally would love a fuel cell. I think it's very challenging for a single residential homeowner to make the economics work for a fuel cell, but I would absolutely encourage the technology for businesses across Connecticut that it makes sense economically and financially. Oh, sorry.
So what other towns besides Bloomfield and Hartford
That have fuel cells? There are several, I believe.
We have several installations in Hartford at different businesses. Let's see, so Ansonia has fuel cells. We just finished one it's not technically in Connecticut, but it's in Massachusetts. TripAdvisor just installed a new fuel cell at their facility. UConn has fuel cells. There's a number of locations around the state that have fuel cells. Bridgeport, yeah, we're installing another facility in Bridgeport soon.
So they're mainly focused in urban areas and or
they're across
organizations that are large, like large institutions?
Any place where there's a large source of power in one location is where it makes sense to work.
Yeah, I can speak to personal experience. In between my University of Hartford employment, I worked for the state of Connecticut and the CSCU system office. So they serve all the higher ed schools except UConn. So Central, Eastern, Western, Southern Connecticut, all the community colleges. I headed up their fuel cell and solar programs when I worked for CSCU. So there are fuel cells at Eastern, Southern, Central, and Western Connecticut, and I believe right now Manchester Community College is also researching that, and possibly Tunxus.
Trinity College, and just so you know too, several Home Depot stores have fuel cells installed. Quite a few, actually, where they're using the fuel cell to power the store. So, you know, they're pretty prevalent.
Stores campus has one, and they're looking at 6 more.
Yeah, they have on the Depot campus. There's a fuel cell actually across from the old State House, where the used to be the Bank of America building. Now it's apartments. There's a fuel cell behind that building. If you go through, you see it. I think is it you or Fuel Cell Energy? I can't remember. But there's the fuel cell there as well. Yeah.
Thank you. This is just one more comment from online. Yes, the benefits have been stated. However, what are the disadvantages to this project? What are the negatives?
From the university's perspective, there aren't negatives. I wouldn't be recommending a fuel cell, or the university would be moving forward if we thought there were negative impacts to doing this. One of the big benefits, one of the online comments was about the ozone layer. A fuel cell helped improve the emissions in the state of Connecticut. A fuel cell has much, much improved air emissions versus what the university currently purchases from Eversource to supply electricity to our campus. So we don't see any negatives, we see positives and an opportunity to improve our sustainability and improve the load on the grid in the greater Hartford area.
Just trying to get through the online ones and then I'll kick it over.
Okay, so here's another question coming from online. So the community does not have a voice. We need to find out how the council members voted and when. When did we get approval for this project?
September of last year, I believe. Sorry, I could be misspeaking. I apologize.
Yeah, I have a letter here that was sent to Council President Mally Rosato dated August 8th, 2022. And then there's also an attachment from March 28th, where of 2022, sorry for that, I didn't mention the date, which the mayor is requesting an easement from the city of Hartford to Connecticut Natural Gas Corporation. So it looks like this happened a little over a year ago. So
as far as I understand the timelines, the easement for Weaver High School parcel was approved in around about the September of 2022 timeline. Yeah, is my recollection of the timelines.
So the easement triggers the 824 review process, which is a multi-stage process that's supposedly community-centric, where the community is involved along the way. The various committees are required to have public hearings and so forth. So the original resolution, the request was probably March of 2022, which is really what's baffling, that the community wasn't really even aware of it until August, when we started seeing it on the agenda. Okay, so from March 2022 to August, the communication channels from University of Hartford, CNG, like I don't know, that's where the void was, right? I have the question about, you had mentioned that you all currently had diesel energy sources. Will those be decommissioned if this fuel cell comes back online, or are you still going to be operating those?
So when the fuel cell comes online, we will still have our diesel generators that run on microgrid. long-term plan is to tie in the fuel cells and eliminate one or both of the diesel generators. It is not going to happen on day one when the fuel cells come online, but that is the long-term goal.
Any other questions from anyone in the room or online? Yep.
How will we know, and when will we see the written plan for when the diesel generators will be decommissioned, and what the timeline is for them?
We don't have a timeline on it right now. We'll probably let them run for their useful life, but I don't have a timeline for exactly when we're going to do that. We will evaluate that, and when it's appropriate, we will do that conversion, but I don't have an answer to that right now. It's not mapped out and for an exact timeline.
What's the timeline?
Typically 30 years. And we're about 15 years into that timeline.
Just to follow up on the diesel. When we talk about clean energy, we talk about diesel, we talk about gas, fuel cells. On the scale of clean, where does the diesel stand, and why would you not make a commitment to decommission that if it's not the most healthy fuel source?
The diesel generators only run when the entire campus loses power from Eversource, so they are not run very often. There are also emission standards on the exhaust pipes that control the emissions outside of those diesel generators. We have 2 feeds to our main substation on campus from Eversource. We have a 3B06, which comes down the railroad tracks from Bloomfield, and the 2N14 circuit that comes from Hartford. So if one of those circuits from Eversource fails, it automatically switches to the backup electrical feed from Eversource. If both of those circuits fail, the generators turn on, and only until Eversource can restore one or both of those electrical feeds to our substation. So they have very, very limited runtime use, and therefore very limited emissions.
Okay. I want to say thank you very much for everyone who took the time to be here this evening. And I just have a question for the team here. Does any one of you work with anyone who went to Weaver High School? Do you have any Weaver co-workers? You do. Anybody else?
The university does.
You have co-workers from Weaver High School? Okay. I just want to say this in closing. To improve the overall quality of life of any community, education is foundational and is vital. I stand here this evening to represent the Weaver parent body. And education, again, is what it boils down to. You know, this meeting has kind of left us with a kind of resolve. People still have mixed feelings about how we arrived here, because we felt like somebody was trying to sneak through a back door, and then the door creaked and somebody got alerted. And we woke up and found out that somebody was trying to sneak through. On that note, I want to extend a personal invitation here to everyone who's sitting on this team this evening. The very first PTO meeting that Weaver will have when the new school year opens in September, I would like to invite all of you. This is where I think we can arrive at a resolve where we can start to fix what needs to be fixed. Can I get an eye from everybody sitting here this evening on the team who will be there? Okay? And I thank you all so very much. This is the beginning of something great. And when I first met the the principal of the Weaver High School, I said to her, the change has arrived. Now I want to thank you all for being a part of the change. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
I just want to, on behalf of Blue Hills Civic Association, just thank everyone for coming out. Thanking all of everyone for your presentation. And I'm going to tell you that at Blue Hills Civic Association, we hold everyone accountable. So this is just the beginning, as we said, and we certainly look forward to many, many more dialogues and conversations about this until we get this resolved. So thank you very much. Oh, and our residents, of course. Our residents, I mean, you know, you guys are top of the line here. We can't, they turn out for everything. So thank you very much. And to everyone who was viewing this at home, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I think that's it.
We should say thank you.
Yeah, big thank you for everyone's participation, your feedback, everything. You know, we had someone take notes. I'm definitely going to follow up with folks here, and I encourage you to do the same. And hopefully everyone has a nice, happy, safe 4th of July. If I don't talk to you, please do. Please reach out. Please reach out. Have a safe evening, everyone.